Every morning before the world woke up, I stepped onto my porch and raised the same flag my father brought home from his final tour. It wasn't just fabric. It was the heartbeat of my family and a promise I'd made to keep his memory alive. Neighbors would wave, kids would stop on their bikes and salute. It made our whole street feel like a community. But one morning I noticed something strange. Across the street, a group of HOA board members stood watching, clipboards in hand, whispering to each other. I didn't know it then. But that flag, my father's flag, was about to start a war. The next morning, I found an envelope taped to my front door, stamped with the HOA logo in red. The envelope was crisp, official, the kind you open with shaking hands. Violation, unauthorized display of national symbol. My jaw dropped. They claimed the flag disrupted the neighborhood's visual harmony. Harmony? It was a flag, not a protest sign, not a neon billboard. When I looked up from the letter, Martha Greer, the HOA president, was already standing at the edge of my lawn. Her arms were crossed, her smile tight and controlled. "Morning," she said. "You'll want to take that down before we start issuing fines." I stepped forward and asked, "And what happens if I don't?" But she only smirked and walked away. I didn't wait. I caught her later that evening as she inspected another house. "Are you serious, Martha?" "That flag belonged to my father." Her voice was like ice. "Rules are rules, Mr. Cole. We can't have personal symbols cluttering the neighborhood. It sets a precedent." I felt my blood surge. "That's not clutter, that's courage." She sighed, signed a form on her clipboard, and handed it to me. 30 days, or we start daily penalties." Then she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Don't make this personal." But it already was. As she walked away, I saw her look over her shoulder and whisper to another board member. And both of them laughed. By the next week, whispers spread faster than wildfire. Some neighbors quietly lowered their flags, afraid of being targeted. Others left baked goods on my porch with tiny paper flags stuck in the frosting, silent support in a fearful community. Even old Mr. Thompson, a veteran across the street, saluted me every morning despite the disapproving stares. Then one night, I noticed headlights outside. HOA cars, parked just across from my lawn, cameras flashing as they took pictures of my house. They weren't enforcing rules anymore. They were watching. The next morning, I got a new notice. This one said, "Final warning." That Friday, I came home from work and froze. Martha and 2 board members were standing in my yard. One held a ladder. The other had bolt cutters. They were about to take my flag down. "Hey!" I shouted, sprinting toward them. "Step away from that pole!" Martha spun around, cool as ever. "We warned you." My security camera light blinked red. It was recording everything. I told her, "You just made the biggest mistake of your career." She smirked. "Then sue us." "HOA rules trump your emotions." I smiled back, calm and cold. "No, Martha, this time, they don't." That night, I made a phone call that would change everything. The next morning, half the town woke up to my post going viral. My post spread like wildfire across the internet. If the HOA wants to ban my flag, maybe the governor should come see what they're banning. Within 24 hours, it had over 2 million views. News trucks rolled into the neighborhood. Reporters set up camp on the sidewalk. The HOA's precious visual harmony was now covered in camera lights and microphones. And then came the twist. A tweet from the governor's official account. "We'll be visiting Mr. Cole's home to stand with him and his flag." By that evening, the HOA's phones were exploding. Martha's car was spotted leaving the neighborhood in a hurry. And I stood under that same flag watching it ripple under floodlights, whispering, "Dad, this one's for you." But as the governor's convoy approached, a black SUV pulled up first. And it wasn't from the state. Before the governor's convoy even arrived, a sleek black SUV rolled quietly to the curb. Tinted windows. No plates. 2 men stepped out, suits, earpieces, and the kind of posture that said government. One of them walked up to me. "Mr. Cole?" "Yeah." He flashed a badge. "State Security Liaison. We're here on behalf of the governor. But before she arrives, we need to make sure you're safe." From across the street, Martha and her HOA board stood in a huddle, whispering furiously. Their smiles were gone. They finally realized this wasn't a small-town fight anymore. One of the agents leaned close and said quietly, "Mr. Cole, you should know. Someone made a complaint against you this morning. They handed me a printed document." "Anonymous complaint," the agent said. "Claiming your flagpole violates local safety ordinances, unstable structure, possible hazard." My jaw tightened. That's the HOA's newest trick. When they can't win morally, they attack legally. I looked at the agent. "You think I built it wrong?" He shook his head. "It's sturdy. This isn't about code, it's about control." The other agent muttered, "We've dealt with this kind of stunt before." Across the street, Martha shouted, "We're just following the law." But the cameras caught it all, her shaking voice, the desperation behind her smile. I didn't say a word. I just looked up at my father's flag, still waving proudly above the chaos. The governor's motorcade appeared at the end of the street. Sirens off. But every lens in town turned toward my house. The sound of engines faded into silence as the convoy stopped. The governor stepped out, calm, confident, wearing a dark blazer with the state pin shining under the sun. She looked up at my flag, then at me, and smiled. "Beautiful day for a stand, Mr. Cole." The crowd erupted. Neighbors, reporters, veterans, even children holding tiny paper flags. The governor turned to the cameras. "In this state," she said, "no one bans the symbol of our freedom. Not a committee, not an association, and not anyone." Martha tried to interrupt. "Governor, this is private." The governor raised her hand. "Private doesn't mean above the Constitution, Ms. Greer." You could feel the air shift. Every camera zoomed in. A journalist's mic caught Martha muttering to her lawyer, "Call the National HOA Council. We're not done." That night, my quiet street turned into a broadcast battlefield. News vans lined the road. Drone cameras hovered. The governor gave a statement, but it was my footage, the HOA trying to remove my flag, that played on every channel. Millions watched. The comments exploded. "That man's flag stands for all of us. HOA power trip exposed." Meanwhile, the HOA's inbox filled with hate mail, legal threats, and resignation demands. Martha's phone rang nonstop. Her once proud Harmony board was falling apart. And me? I just sat on the porch, holding my father's folded army cap, whispering, "You see that, Dad? You started something." But around midnight, my security app pinged, movement detected in the backyard. I opened my camera feed, and my heart stopped. 2 figures, flashlights near the flagpole. They weren't vandals. They were the same HOA members who'd tried to take the flag down before. One whispered, "Just cut it and leave." The other replied, "If we get the footage deleted, no one will know." I grabbed my phone, hit record, and stepped out onto the porch. Lights on. Floodlights burst to life, blinding them. They froze like deer in headlights. "Martha's orders?" I asked. They ran, right into the headlights of a waiting news van. Cameras caught everything. The next morning, headlines read, "HOA caught sabotaging Veterans Memorial flag. On camera." By sunrise, the story had gone national. Talk shows, politicians, celebrities, everyone had something to say. Even the president's press secretary commented, "Every citizen has the right to fly their nation's flag. Period." The HOA board scrambled. Martha called an emergency meeting, but half her members had already resigned. When she showed up at my door, she didn't look smug anymore. She looked scared. "Mr. Cole," she said softly, "maybe we can resolve this privately." I stepped out, cameras still rolling. "Privately?" I asked. "No, Martha. You made this public. Let's finish it that way." She turned pale. Reporters swarmed. And right then, the governor's office released a new statement. "The state legislature will review HOA overreach laws, starting today." But as Martha walked away, she muttered under her breath, "You think you've won? You haven't seen what's coming next." 3 days after the governor's visit, a thick envelope arrived in my mailbox. A lawsuit. Filed by the HOA itself. They claimed I had defamed the association, disrupted neighborhood order, and incited harassment. They were suing me for $250,000. The nerve. They tried to take down a flag, got caught, and now they wanted me to pay for their humiliation. But I wasn't alone anymore. By noon, a local law firm offered to represent me pro bono. Their message was simple. If they want a war, we'll give them one. That night, Martha was spotted meeting someone in a black sedan outside town hall and handing over an envelope. Security footage leaked 2 days later. The meeting showed Martha exchanging papers with a man connected to a state zoning board, the same agency that regulates property rights. Rumors exploded online. Was the HOA bribing officials to change the rules retroactively? Was this all pre-planned? I confronted her in public right outside the courthouse steps. Martha, who was in that car? She froze under camera lights. You have no idea what you're up against, Cole. Her tone wasn't arrogant anymore. It was desperate. That night, someone smashed my mailbox and left a note taped to it. Take it down. The courtroom was packed. Cameras everywhere. The HOA's attorney argued that I weaponized patriotism for attention. My lawyer countered with footage. Martha's ladder, the bolt cutters, the midnight break-in. Every clip drew gasps from the crowd. Martha avoided eye contact, her hands trembling on the table. Then came the bombshell. The governor's office sent a legal representative to the hearing. He stood up and said, "The state recognizes this as a matter of constitutional freedom, not neighborhood aesthetics." The judge nodded slowly. Case continued for final ruling. As we left, a bailiff handed me a sealed folder marked Anonymous Submission for Mr. Cole's eyes only. I opened the folder in my truck. Inside were photocopies of HOA financial records and a handwritten note. Look at who's been funding the HOA's legal team. My pulse spiked as I flipped through the pages. A name kept appearing. Greer Development Holdings. Martha's last name. She wasn't just HOA president. She owned the company that built half the neighborhood. If she could rewrite HOA rules, she could also control land values, construction permits, and kickbacks. This wasn't about a flag anymore. It was about money and control. My lawyer leaned over and whispered, "If this is real, she's going down for fraud." I released the documents online. Within hours, the HOA office was raided by local investigators. Boxes of files, receipts, and hard drives were hauled out under flashing lights. The news anchors called it the flag scandal. Neighbors came out cheering as officials shut down the HOA's office for financial misconduct. But Martha had vanished. Her house was empty. Curtains drawn, car gone. The only thing left behind was a single flagpole, bare, no flag, standing crooked in her yard. Almost symbolic. The next morning, I found a voicemail on my phone. A woman's voice whispering, "She's not gone. She's regrouping." 2 days later, my lawyer called. "You need to hear this." He played an audio file, Martha's voice, recorded during a board meeting weeks before the scandal. "If that man keeps that flag up, we lose control. And if we lose control, we lose the land." Another voice asked, "You're saying this is about real estate?" Martha replied coldly, "It's always been about real estate." The truth hit me like thunder. All this, the notices, the fines, the threats, had been about her plan to rezone the neighborhood and sell it to her own company. My flag was never the problem. It was the excuse. My lawyer looked up from the recording. "Cole, are you ready for what comes next? Because she's about to fight dirty." The peace didn't last. One foggy morning, a gray SUV rolled up to the curb. Martha stepped out. No clipboard, no smile, just eyes full of exhaustion and rage. She looked thinner, hardened. "Enjoy your 15 minutes, Cole?" she said. I stared back. "Still going." She dropped a folder on my porch. "You ruined me. I'm taking you with me." When I opened the folder, I found a restraining order. She was accusing me of harassment. Within days, fake posts flooded social media. Claims that I staged the flag dispute for fame. Screenshots doctored to show donations I never took. The HOA's remaining loyalists were feeding a new narrative. He's no hero, he's a manipulator. My inbox filled with threats again. Sponsors pulled interviews. The governor's office went silent. No public statements, no support. Martha's smear tactics were working. My lawyer warned, "She's poisoning the court of public opinion before the real hearing." That night, An anonymous text hit my phone. Tomorrow. City Hall, bring the recording. Everything ends there. The City Hall chamber overflowed. Press, protesters, veterans waving miniature flags. Martha sat at one table, I sat at the other. 2 microphones between us. The hearing was to determine whether the HOA would be dissolved permanently. Martha opened first, voice trembling but defiant. He made us villains for following the law. He's the reason this neighborhood fell apart. Then it was my turn. I played the recording, her voice saying, "It's always been about real estate." The entire room went silent. The chairperson leaned forward. "Miss Greer, care to explain?" She didn't answer. She just stood up and walked out, escorted by 2 investigators waiting at the door. By evening, the news broke again. HOA president arrested for fraud, extortion, and property manipulation. The footage ran everywhere. Martha led away in handcuffs, reporters shouting questions. My neighbors poured into the street cheering. Old Mr. Thompson walked over, saluted me, and whispered, "Your dad would have been proud, son." But as the crowd celebrated, I noticed something in the distance. A small figure by my flagpole. A young boy, maybe 9, staring up at the flag with tears in his eyes. His father had served too. That moment hit harder than any victory headline. The governor's office called again. "Mr. Cole, we'd like you to stand with us at the new state bill signing tomorrow." The Capitol lawn gleamed under the afternoon sun. Reporters lined up as the governor announced the Homeowner Freedom Act, a new law protecting citizens' rights to display national or state symbols on private property. She called me forward. "This began with one man who refused to lower his flag," she said. I lifted my father's old cap and set it on the podium. "This isn't my win," I said. "It's every person's who's ever been told to stay quiet." Crowd applause. Cameras flashing. But amid the noise, my phone buzzed, an unknown number. A voicemail played automatically. "You think laws stop everything, Cole? Flags burn easy." I looked up. Smoke on the horizon. My neighborhood. Sirens wailed as I sped home. Flames licked the night sky, a small blaze at the edge of my fence. Firefighters were already there, dousing it before it spread. They found the cause, a charred gasoline rag shoved under my flagpole base. Arson. Martha was in custody, so who did it? Detectives believed one of the last loyal board members acted in revenge. The pole was scorched but standing. The flag? Torn, edges blackened but not gone. I lifted it carefully, ashes falling onto my hands. I whispered, "You'll fly again, old friend," and started planning a ceremony no one would forget. 1 week later, the entire town gathered. Veterans' families, even state officials stood shoulder to shoulder on my lawn. A brand new flag waited beside the old one, both to be raised together. As the anthem played, I hoisted them side by side. The wind caught them perfectly. One tattered, one pristine, waving as if in unison. The crowd saluted. Some cried. I looked up, sunlight breaking through the smoke-scarred sky, and felt a quiet peace settle in. For the first time, our street was united, not by rules, but by respect. The governor approached, whispering, "You've done more for freedom than any law ever could." I smiled, eyes on the flag. Dad would have said the same. Later that night, I checked my mail. Inside was a small unsigned note. "You won the battle, but the board still exists. And we're rebuilding."